Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello. So my guest today is Ben Wong, head of open innovation at Eureka Nova, based out of Hong Kong, a leading open innovation platform that empowers technology startups to co-create within the New World Group ecosystem of culture, creativity, and innovation. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Jen. How are you? Thanks for having
Good.
me.
Oh, of course. Thanks for joining. I'm excited to have Ben on as a guest today. So first off, congratulations on becoming a father during COVID.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a few of us out there.
Yeah, there is a few, I think many.
Yes, yes.
So a little background. Ben and I went to Dickinson College together in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but basically we were the 2 out of 10 Asian students in our graduating class at the time. We actually never really hung out much in college. Ben was in a fraternity and played football, and I have to admit, I've never even watched a Red Devils football game. I know where the field is, which is I never watched a game. I only remember him as a talented, good-looking Asian guy on campus. Fast forward a decade later, who knew our paths would cross in Taipei when Ben visited the former company Taiwan Startup Stadium that I was working at. It has been a great pleasure to reconnect with Ben these last few years, both in Taiwan and Hong Kong, to chat about the startup ecosystems in both places. You have a lot to share as well. So in this episode, I've asked Ben, what we wanted to talk about for the challenges and impactful moments for himself. You have a lot to cover, Ben. So
Sure.
we're gonna dive into this. We might cover not all, but being first generation Chinese Malay, growing up in New Jersey, why you chose sports. There are not that many Asians playing football. So you can talk a little bit about that. Learning from your parents' mistakes. I thought that was interesting because I don't know what those are, but you might share with us later on. And then how you decided to move to Asia. Um,
Sure.
yeah, so I will let you kind of dive right in here and see how you want to start us off.
Yeah. Again, Jen, thank you for having me on your podcast. This is pretty cool. And I have to say, even though we went to the same school and I believe we even stayed at the same dorm, we just kind of crossed paths and never really got to hang out together. And it was pretty cool when I was working in Hong Kong, and I took a business trip to Taipei to meet one of our partners, and then suddenly I heard Ben out of nowhere, and I was like, "Who knows me here in Taipei?" And I look over, it was you, and it was quite exciting. And then we've obviously connected ever since. It's just that we never actually connected at school. But
Exactly.
again, glad to be here. I guess I'll start off with a little bit of a background of my personal life. So I was born in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. My parents were doing odd jobs, trying to figure things out. My dad was, I remember, a chicken salesman at a grocery store. And then I guess that didn't work out. And then he tried to be a fisherman. And we moved to KK, Kota Kinabalu in Sabah. And I guess that didn't work out. And he decided to move to the US and try out the restaurant business. So he went to the US first. My brother and I, we were just kids. And my mom was also kind of figuring her life out. And I think she was doing cosmetic sales at the airport. And while my dad was trying to figure things out in New Jersey, New York, my mom took care of us. And uh, eventually, my mom then went first to the US. And we were staying with my uncle and my grandparents for a couple of years. And again, just waiting for the opportunity to kind of reconnect with our parents. I think 2 years later, I was around 9 years old. My mom and my dad saved up enough money and sent us over. So then from that point on, I grew up in the U.S. and I was a little bit lost. I think the one thing I remember thinking was, hey, I'm Asian and I'm in America, and I suddenly have a bunch of students and kids my age asking me if I know kung fu. And I thought, hey, why don't I just play this up? I grew up watching like Huang Fei Hong,
Yeah.
doing all the flying around and kicking and all that kind of stuff. I said, I'll just play this up. And I guess the naive me and the naive kids in America thought, hey, yeah, he's Asian, he must know kung fu, and let's stay away from him until I got challenged one day, and we were playing a wall ball, and I think some kid thought I took his ball, and I started to pull off these like kung fu moves in front of him, which was ridiculous. Now I look back at it, and he just punched me in the face. He punched me in the face, and I bled nonstop because I think I cut my lip. And I remember from that point on, I'm definitely not going to play up this kung fu thing. So yeah, that was kind of my introduction to America, and how I got into sports was really after that moment. I started meeting up with friends that was very nice to protect me to a certain degree because I was
Hmm.
getting picked on,
Hmm.
and they introduced me to wrestling. And we did wrestling, and I suddenly found myself a little bit. I was kind of this very scrawny, little Asian kid with glasses. I wore glasses since I was like 5 years old,
Oh,
and
wow.
uh, yeah, no. I look back at it. I was, it's just it's funny how I went from this very stereotypical geeky Asian kid to be able to find sports to really propel um, my confidence and my ability to you know connect with other people through sports. So yeah, wrestling led to then some basketball, led to some baseball, and then eventually I found my sport, which was football, and played football throughout high school, and then got recruited at Dickinson College, and then played a little bit more, and eventually moved to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong even has a football team, so I'm still playing a little bit. I probably should quit soon. I'm getting older, but yeah, that's really kind of helped me really. I think I have to say sports have shaped my life entirely. If I didn't have sports, I don't think I'd meet the people, the coaches that have helped me in my life, and who I am today. I would have been a very different person.
Yeah, could you kind of elaborate a little bit about that? I mean, I've had others on the episodes who, are in the sports industry,
Right.
and a lot of them do talk about how it is for some very vital to how it shapes you as an individual, right? Because like you said earlier, coming in as an immigrant and transitioning as a young, I mean, you weren't even a young adult. It was like you were a kid, basically. You were 9,
That's right.
right? So having to kind of find your place, and your parents are very busy, right? It's just you and your brother, a new environment. How was it that sports, it's almost like you found your safe haven through sports, right? And you learn and grew through sports. And sports is always, I mean, I think for myself too, I feel like sports is always a great way to learn about sportsmanship, about how to be a better person, right? It's not always about the wins and the losses. So for
Yeah.
you, and were there others you could relate to, I guess, like, who came from a similar background like you, or it was, yeah.
Yeah. I would say having access to an immediate brotherhood was amazing, right? Because in a team atmosphere, you are forced to a certain degree to work along with each other and ultimately win as a team. And I think there's so many kind of learning points within a team and through your teammates, through your captains, and through your coaches that translate into life uh, so well. I think number one, when I got introduced to sports, it was my childhood friend who made it fun, right? Go into someone's backyard, kick the ball around, shoot the basketball around. I think that number one, having my parents work in a Chinese restaurant and my brother and I just being home alone, that was a great way for us to, make friends. But then when it started to getting a little bit more serious, and I started to realize I could play a little bit of sports, I just remember how much a coach would push you to challenge yourself. Um, I still remember when we were trying out for a baseball team in high school, and you would think that baseball is probably one of the least strenuous or physical sport out there, but baseball was probably the hardest tryout I've ever had in my life. I recall the coach making a slide head first in a basketball court, right? And we were our arms were ripped apart, our hands were blistering, but the coach was basically asking us to dig very deep inside and challenge ourselves. And if you kind of were shocked, right? Most people would be shocked. Why would you do that? But after you've done it, you realize you can dig deeper, you can go further,
Mhm.
and you've become a better person as a result. And I think that has helped a lot because not only have you done that, but your entire team dug
Right.
deep together,
Everyone.
right?
Yeah, everyone
Yeah,
did it.
exactly. And you've challenged yourself together, you've won together, you've lost together, you've overcome challenges together. And man, I look back at it and I try to translate a lot of these learnings to my team. My team might go, hey, there's too much work, right? And which is probably a comment
It's
that most
true.
managers see, right? but
Yeah.
but let's think about it together. Let's take on this challenge together, right? Let's see how far we can go together. And I think a lot of this in the end, when we have successful projects at work, people realize, man, I can do a lot more than I originally anticipated. And people talk about being in your comfort zone. Sports was the best way for us to step outside our comfort zone, right? So yeah, I've learned a lot.
Yeah. I love how you integrated that into work.
Yeah. Yeah, I do it all the time. I don't know if you remember one of our classmates in college. His name was Rich Rosenthal. Um, I guess he's gonna get a shutout maybe. But just having
You-
someone to amp you up, right? Having your manager to step up there and tell you you can do it. Rich was that person for me. Always when we go work out together, he's like, Wong, you can do more than this. I know you can. You're taking a step back right now, and he just always challenging me, and I felt that I actually learned a lot from him, and I actually use those tactics with my team. Obviously in a genuine way, but it works. I really feel. Speaking to a lot of kind of managers in our industry, most of them have a little bit of a sports background,
Mm,
and I feel like that's something that everyone should consider. When they look at activities or extracurricular that they want to try.
yeah, I think so. It's very important. So you had mentioned earlier too about your parents, right? So,
Yeah,
as a kid and watching both your parents try to make means for the household and making that decision to leave you and your brother back in Malaysia while they pursue the American dream and then bringing you guys over. Is that something as a family you guys, oftentimes discuss, out of gratitude for, mom, dad, like, thanks for bringing us over here. If it wasn't because of, the machine coup, like your struggle, like, bro and I would not be where we are today, etc., etc. So
yeah, yeah,
how would you shape that storyline? Or not shape the storyline, but I guess in hindsight now when you look back and how things have unfolded, um you had
yeah.
mentioned you learned from their mistakes. What to
Yes,
you was their mistakes, you know what I mean? Or
yeah, sure.
or as a father now, what would you make sure you do differently
Yeah,
with your
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So we are an Asian family, and
Mhm.
as an Asian family, communicating your gratitude towards them, it's a very difficult thing to do.
Mhm.
So in fact, I've never really, sat in front of them and had that conversation to thank them for all that they've done. I think it's because understood in Asian culture, right? There's no need to kind of communicate to a certain degree. You're kind of proving through action, showing your gratitude through your actions in life. So very traditional. I think a lot of first generation Asian Americans have kind of similar experiences. Having a tough dad, the mom that tries to help you empathize. I just remember my dad was always been the strict one. You got to be careful around him, right? Not say the wrong things. He essentially was the breadwinner, and my mom would be someone who is more of trying to get us to understand my dad's point of view or understand uh, things that we've done wrong, right? And I'm not sure if you've had this experience, Jen, but being from Malaysia, corporal punishment is normal.
Oh,
Um, so
so glad
uh,
to be. I did not have that
no, you
experience.
didn't. Oh, lucky you. So I mean, we were punished physically as a kid in school, uh, on the bus, at home. I still have a very vivid memory of my grandfather was a bus driver in Malaysia. So the bus driving system in Malaysia, they don't necessarily pick up all the students from one school. They'll go to multiple schools, pick up the kids, and then drop them off. And I remember we had one kid that always sat in the front with me who was very naughty, um, you know, always causing trouble. And my grandpa would stop the bus on the side of the road and take out, in Canton it's a tantiu, like a bamboo stick,
Yeah, the
and and whip him up. And I remember, whoa, like, to me that was normal. Everyone gets hit, but the part that shocked me was after he got hit and he cried. Um, and when my grandfather dropped him off at home, my grandfather stepped off, took him off the bus, told the parents, and then the parents whipped him. Whip the kid in front of all of us. So it was kind of this like it takes a village saying, in terms of like taking care of the kids, but it was very normal. So
Mhm.
that translated to my home. So being hit was kind of normal. If you do something wrong, you get punished. Uh, and my mom, I would say, if my mom wasn't there, I would probably gain over time a lot of hatred towards my father because I wouldn't understand why I was getting hit.
Right, right,
So my mom would kind of try to number one tell me what I did wrong.
right.
What is my
Communication, communicating with you.
Yeah, yeah, and then even though if I don't agree, trying to help me understand my dad's point of view, and many of the times it was probably in hindsight I look back at it, it's probably not right, but she would always, always, always make sure that I say sorry, wrong or right, right. If I was angry that I got hit for no reason, my mom would help me kind of understand that what. Um, if you don't say sorry, it's just going to get worse, right? This is not going to get better, right? If you want this to get better, you need to go in there, just man up and say sorry. And many times I had to say, I think I had 100% hit rate. I had to do it, right? Um, but if I look back at it and I compare it to some of Asian families that didn't have that piece, the mothers that didn't help the kids empathize,
Right, right.
I think you would hear different stories, different relationships. I look
Hmm.
back and I kind of go, hey, why is it that whenever I argue with people or whenever I disagree with people, that I can let go very easily?
Mm.
I think that has to do a lot with my mom's
Wow.
teachings.
Yeah,
Even
yeah, yeah.
when I argue with my wife, I'm very fast to forget. I'm
Okay.
very fast to kind of go, you know what? Even if I'm right, it's just not worth it, right? I think
Mhm.
let's just say sorry. Let's just figure out how to solve it in a better way later, um,
Mhm.
because you can't fight fire with fire, right?
Right.
So that has helped me, right? Um, and that leads into kind of learning from my parents' mistakes, because I do forgive them for a lot of things that they've done. Um, and I think one of the stories that I can share is my dad, like probably a lot of Asian families could probably relate. He loved gambling, right? And he, as a kid, you don't really understand what gambling meant. So I
Mhm.
remember I was probably 10, 11 years old, and my brother and I went to Atlantic City, and we went to a casino called Showboat. And Showboat was kind of like a New Orleans themed casino. There was a lot of entertainment. There were clowns all over, people in costumes. So to kids, that was, whoa, this is like an amusement park. We thought of it as the place to go to have fun, while dad goes and have his fun, and he goes and gambles.
Right.
And then I just remember while we were having fun, the first, call it 6 hours or so, was a lot of fun, right? And then we started, when things started to close, we just realized, hey, why are we staying so much longer? And that 6 hours turned to, 10 hours, turned to 15 hours, turned to 24 hours. And at this point, we realized that my dad has been, gambling the whole entire time, and he would go through 48-hour stretches. The longest I've seen is 72-hour stretches, and you don't see him. He just doesn't know what was
Wow.
happening. But the kind of time where I always relate back to is my when we decided to go home. My brother and I and my mom, we were walking towards the car, and I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, can I get a soda? And the soda was, $1, I think, maybe a little less. And he went into his pocket, and he only had 25 cents left, right? And that's when I went, wow, like I remember you coming in with a lot of cash, and we were supposed to have fun, and I can't even get a soda right now. And that
Mm.
was the moment where I went, man, this is not okay.
How old
This
were
is
you?
11 max, 11 years
Oh,
old,
okay.
10, 11.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that was the moment where I went, this is not okay. I would never want to put my family in this situation, right? So from that point on, I think my dad went through ups and downs. Compromise relationships with family, compromise our relationship within the family, went bankrupt, sold his restaurant, right? All of these kind of challenges I witnessed, and I had to help. I had to, fund some of my dad's, misfortunes that happened, and um, all of those learning, call it obstacles that we had to go through, um, just made me as a stronger, I think, family person.
right.
So I, now that I have a daughter, I have a wife, right? I always tell them, it's like that would never happen to us, um, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure that I don't repeat the mistakes that my dad made, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so long story short, I do, going back to my mom asking me to empathize to a certain degree. I thank my dad for it sounds ridiculous, but thank my dad for showing me this journey, because I have a great relationship with him now, right?
That's great.
He's no longer gambling.
Mhm.
Um, I've controlled his finances, um, and he now understands the mistakes that he made. And now he's going to be a full time, grandfather, right? Like, let's not mess around, right?
Yeah.
But I thank him for showing me in a way that his mistakes, because I won't repeat them, right?
Yes.
And I've seen so much already that I hope that the mistakes I do make in the future are low risk mistakes to a certain
Right.
degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like his mistakes were your learnings. It was like,
Yeah,
you learned.
if you talk about being optimistic and positive, right? And to me, that's the way I take it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. right? Um, so okay, well, I think that really clearly shows a lot of, where your background kind of gives you all that experience to where you are now. And then in terms of how did you end up deciding to leave New Jersey, right?
Hmm.
Leave the US to come to Asia. That, I guess that was a conscious choice on your part, right? Was it because you didn't want to be around them to help them out with stuff? Or,
Hmm.
how come after graduating from Dickinson, you didn't go to New York like a lot of the other classmates of ours did who, because you did business, right? You
Right.
majored in business. So what and then we graduated when Lehman hit. So I mean that was like
Yeah.
in general
Yeah.
like a terrible time to find jobs
Yes.
in '08.
Absolutely.
So what triggered you to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to Asia?
Yeah. Quite a few things. I think number one, if I didn't go to Asia, I think I would have just been running my dad's restaurant. I think I look back at it, I probably would have opened a few restaurants. It would have been probably fun. But part of me was I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be around my parents that much. I've seen the restaurant business. I've seen the ups and downs of a restaurant business. I remember my dad asking me to take it over, and it just didn't make sense for me because you sent me to go to Dickinson College to get an international business major, and you want me to run your restaurant, right?
Is
So
it
I felt
is it
sorry.
still around? Is your family restaurant still around?
No, no longer. So the restaurant got sold
Oh,
in the end. Yeah. So
well, just
um,
time before COVID too, right? So
that's
it wasn't
right.
affected by COVID. So many
That's
restaurants
right.
COVID.
Yeah. So it just didn't. Number one, I guess I didn't want to be home as much. I think number two, I really wanted to try new things, and I think the part that really changed my life was a combination of studying abroad at Dickinson College. I think I studied abroad, and we did a month in Hong Kong and Shanghai in the Greater Bay Area, and I saw the opportunity. I remember we were going from our dormitory to a class in Shenzhen, and we walked past a mall, and it was a Nike pop-up shop that they were building in front of a mall. It was all glass and everything, and I was thinking while I was walking to class in the morning, wow, that'll take a couple of weeks, right? That's because it usually takes a couple of weeks in America. And I remember lunchtime, I think a little bit after lunchtime, walking back towards the dorm, and I came back, and the store was up and running. And I went, holy crap, this is so fast. China and business here in Asia was at hyper speed. So I said, I got to number one, try it, right? I got to give it a try. But the part that really drove me to go was after coming back to the States, I was in a car with my dad, and call it the sports in me, and
The athlete
the
in you.
earn the I always love challenges, right?
Okay.
And my dad goes, you can't make money in China. You can't make money in China. And I said, obviously I didn't argue with him. In my mind, it's like, I'm gonna prove you wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
You're like, look, Amy can. I'm gonna
Yeah,
prove.
exactly. I was like, if you're gonna say that, I'll show you. I'll prove you wrong. And so that triggered it, and I realized that about me over time, that if people challenge me, or say that I can't do a certain thing, I just suddenly get motivated, right? Yeah, um, told my dad, I told my mom, listen, I'm gonna go for a year, give it a try, and if it doesn't work, I'll come back. And now it's been 13 years, right? 13
Yeah.
years in Asia. Yeah, I feel that um, Asia was such a backward um, thought for my family. We came from Malaysia. We moved you to the US. Now you want to go back to Asia.
Yeah.
Um, but I think they've realized now, in hindsight, the opportunities in Asia. Not only in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, but Southeast Asia even, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big move.
have your parents visited you in Hong Kong as well in these 13 years?
Yes, they have. They love it. They,
Okay, okay.
yeah, yeah. They love the food. They love how convenient it is. They love that you can hop on a flight from Hong Kong and get to Taiwan within an hour and a half, and to
Yeah,
Malaysia in 4 hours. Right? It's great.
the beauty of Asia and Southeast Asia. Everything is within less than 5 hours of a,
That's right.
well, when travel
Before
was
COVID.
before COVID. Um, so, okay, we're running short on time, but I
Sure.
do have a few more questions. So, one right now, I would like to just kind of extend this about you coming out to Asia. I wanted to ask, like, at the time coming out, you had your degree fresh out of college. Maybe you had some sort of idea like what industry you wanted to be in or what you wanted to do or pursue. How did that career path shape for you?
Mm.
Being like leaving the US and coming to Asia. And I don't know how fluent your Chinese is or was, or I mean, sure it is fluent now, but at the time, and just kind of being like, all right, I'm here. Like, how do I make this work? Right.
Yeah, yeah. So I had a little bit of a game plan, and the game plan was, let's just get in there and try to find a job, but also do my own startup. So I couldn't necessarily find a job, like you said. It was tough to find a job after we graduated. So I took on a teaching role. It was a program called China Program. And I applied and I got in. And I still remember, they got us the visa and we were making roughly $600 a month US as an English teacher. And that was sufficient in Shenzhen to, live, go out and have a little bit of entertainment, eating wonton soup every day. And
It's like
you're
a
supposed
dollar.
exactly, even less. And I remember for us to make a little bit more money, we would tutor.
Right.
But I would take that time to try to do my own business. So at that time, I wanted to do a company that basically did tailor suits and ship it back to the U.S. Because
Ah,
I could do a tailored suit for $70. I
right.
just needed measurements, and I wanted to sell it to college students for $200 and make a little bit of a margin on that. I tried it. I think I shipped like 5 suits,
Okay.
and I just didn't have enough, call it business acumen, knowledge, or resources to do well. So closed that business and then went into the trading sector. And That's when I joined a company called Global Sources that basically helps Chinese factories sell their products globally. Um, so I did that, but I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit in me. I've always kind of been challenge driven. I wanted to create new things. So I did global sources for a few years,
We
and
have a few Dickinson alums at Global Sources, right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Peter Wing, in fact, was the guy that got me a job at Dickinson. Sorry,
Okay.
at Global
At Global
Sources
Sources, right.
as a
Right.
copywriter. So yeah,
Good old
yeah,
Pete.
good old Pete. That's right.
Pete.
And yeah, so did that, and I got the opportunity to work for the chairman of the company. So I was his executive assistant for a couple of years, and he basically asked me afterwards. He's like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" I said, maybe try a different business or go to school. So he's like, "Hey, why don't you go to school? Go get your MBA, come back, and try something new." So I went to go get my MBA, and at that time, I've learned a lot about the startup space in school, and the entrepreneurial spirit started coming back. And then when I came back to Global Sources, um, the company basically said, "Hey, why don't you try different business models for Global Sources to try to um, innovate slash drive a new business unit, because we're kind of already been doing a cash cow business for some time. We need something new." So I was able to take, a nice amount and budget and try 5 different businesses and took the, entrepreneurial route of driving a minimum viable product to prove if the solution would work. Tried multiple
Yeah.
things, ran my own Kickstarter, ran my own
Yeah.
product, ran an e-commerce platform. But the thing that hit, and that's when we actually met, was Startup Launchpad. And that was basically helping startups sell internationally. And what I realized was when I went to CES in Las Vegas, whoa, there's like hundreds and thousands of startup technology there. But when I asked them where did they make their products, they all said
Yeah.
Shenzhen, right?
Yeah.
And I said Shenzhen is literally 40 minutes from here, right? And I decided to knock on a lot of doors. I said, hey guys, the procurement process, the sourcing process was in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. Why don't I create a show called Startup Launchpad and help you guys source products from here and bring it back to your country? And we started off with 35 startups in our first show. Uh, Buyers loved it. And then within a year and a half, 2 years, we had 700 startups and we became the largest startup show in Asia. And we brought in like 60,000 buyers from all over the world. And yeah, so that kind of helped me really cement myself in the startup space. And then what I'm doing today, running an open innovation platform, I continue to create platforms and solutions to equip these startups to
Yeah.
be a little bit more successful, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like it's like such a nice like story, maybe it's something you can write a book or something.
Yeah, if you buy it, maybe I'll write one.
Okay. We'll look into that. So before we wrap up,
Yeah.
last question for the audience listening. What would you say to those who really resonate with your story, right? Whether it's the, Asian immigrant aspect of it or, growing up in an Asian household, very traditional Asian household, whether it's the sports side or really knowing what you want to do and going for it, and being very innovative and open-minded to adapting to the different things that come at you. What would you say to those people, I guess, out there listening? Your, Ben Wong 2 cent of advice or wide words of wisdom, as I like to call it.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I've thought about this in the past. And I think when it comes to parents, I think a lot of first generation, second generation Asian families always bring up the complicated relationships that they have with their parents. And I think we have to realize that our parents are not perfect. But we just need to understand what our parents are trying to achieve. And I think parents, in most cases, are trying to create the best possible foundation for their children to do well, right?
Yep.
And I think if that's the purpose and the objective of that family, you just have to commend them and take the positive approach, no matter how complicated your relationship is with your family. Um,
Yeah.
there's a goal and then there's the tactics, right? And tactics
Yep.
may or may not be right. So your parents are going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. But
Hmm.
ultimately, what are they trying to achieve? So
Yeah.
I think number one, you really should appreciate what they've already tried to provide you. You are here to a certain degree because of them.
Right.
Um, so always take the positive route when it comes to understanding your parents. They went through a lot as immigrants. If they moved to the U.S. or elsewhere, they took a lot of risk in their lives as well. So that's kind of my thing. With relationships with your family.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
say sorry, thank you, and I'm grateful. And I love you.
exactly. Exactly. Even though it's hard to say, by action, right? Show it.
I know.
I remember
I
when my
know.
mom started saying it to me, I said, "Oh, that's weird to say back." But I say it now, and it's nice. I know she likes it. I know I feel good when I say it. Um,
Yeah.
but
It
yeah,
just
and
takes
then, please,
practice.
yeah, it does. It does take
Yeah.
practice. It took me like
Practice.
10 times to understand what I'm trying to do. I could easily say it to my girlfriends, but it was so hard for me to say it to my mom.
I think that's a really great way to summarize all that. Because without them, we wouldn't be here, and without them, you wouldn't be where you are right now either.
That's
And
right.
you've definitely learned a lot from them to apply to all the things your resilience, anything you've encountered to get to where you are today. And so
Absolutely.
you're going to teach that to your daughter.
That's the goal. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Ben. I'm gonna include the open innovation link in the resources below, so people can
Great.
reach out to you. Whether they're startups in the U.S. or the bridging that you work with a lot. And I think
Absolutely.
that's great. You're a great resource for those out there. So, thank you,
Thank you
and
so
happy
much, Jenn.
holidays.
You as well. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.